Hey guys, I want to raise a discussion point here about reloaded ammunition for self-defense. This is a question that we actually get a lot in reader mail. I think Brent might have an opinion on the topic, but it comes up all the time. It comes up in comments on Facebook and in videos and reader mail. Some of us, I don't mean to brag, but are really good at reloading ammunition. And we say, hey,
and are
we
humble
can make
too.
and are humble. Yep, humility is awesome.
Off the
I'm telling
scale.
you. I'm the best at being humble. So just seeing if you're paying attention there. Anyway, so we can make good ammunition, right? It's a little cheaper and all that. So the question arises, should you reload your ammunition for self-defense? Now, I've heard that Roy Huntington actually makes his own bullets from dried up fruitcake. And I think we can all agree there's nothing harder on planet Earth, so if you're looking for penetration, that's probably not a bad idea.
That's
But
true.
I want to hear it from the source. Roy, do you reload your own ammo for defensive use?
And this is going to light everyone's hair on fire. Because I don't specifically reload my ammunition for defense. And if I'm going to town and I'm carrying my town gun, I will always use factory ammunition. But the reality is, there are times where I have carried reloaded ammunition in a gun that I was going to use for defense. And for instance, if I'm out here on my property and I'm driving my tractor around and I've got my 45 Colt gun with me, I promise you it's got reloads in it. And could I feasibly use that gun for defense? Sure. Which brings up an interesting thing, and I think we need to talk a little bit about the situational dependencies of these things.
Well, how about we discuss the reason why that thing came about, this idea of never using hand loads. It came about from a law enforcement scenario. It was ingrained in us from day one. You never, ever, 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 ever carry anything but approved factory loads, because it would be in violation of department policy if you shot somebody with another type of ammunition, which created a couple of problems. Mainly is you acted outside the scope of your policies and procedures, which meant you didn't do what you were supposed to. So the first thing the city, county, state would do is say, he didn't follow the rules, so it's on him, it's not on us. That usually didn't work, but that was kind of the main reason, that good old L word, liability.
Which I don't.
Yeah, but Brent, you can save like 8 cents a round by using reloads.
But is this a triumph of the L word over practicality, though? I know Moss has covered this many times in IUB files and whatnot. And the last time I recall is, Moss advocates find out what your local law enforcement carry and carry that in your gun. Because that way you can say, well, I carry the same thing the cops carry. And I think there has some merit to it. The nice thing about that is I've testified as a firearms expert in homicide trials, and it checks that box off. What kind of ammunition was it? It was factory ammunition, exactly the same as police officers carry. And it's like, oh, okay. Of course, one guy said, oh, so you wanted the massive killing power that only policemen usually have. So that's why it's like you can't win. I know there was another case where, and I think Moss successfully defended this guy who happened to use hand loads because he didn't have a lot of money, and that's where he got his ammunition. And he was actually able to prove that this guy did it because of he had to save money because he didn't have a lot of money, and that he was careful and he wanted to make sure that these things weren't more destructive than they had to be. Do you see what I mean? And
That's
it's
an
a
uphill
kinder,
battle.
gentler kind of killing.
it is, but they pulled it off, and basically the judge, but it's subjective. But the judge kind of said, like, okay, what's the big deal, And as one prosecutor told me one time, he said, if you are defending yourself lawfully, then it doesn't matter if you use a street brick, And
Good
so
point.
why should it matter if you use a hand-loaded ammunition,
See, I want to throw a wrench in the money thing. Saving money. That's the only, to me, that's the only upside. You're not going to make more reliable ammunition than premium self-defense ammo. Sorry, but you're not. You don't have lasers and scales and a million automated checks to do that. You're doing it to save money. So how much self-defense ammo do you shoot in a year's time? Per gun, for a gun.
Yeah. Oh, I agree.
One box if you rotate it?
No. We're gun riders. We shoot thousands and thousands of rounds of premium ammunition every week.
So,
I choked myself on that one.
Yeah.
Sorry.
well, maybe. I mean, I just don't get it. I mean, why introduce that whole variable into the courtroom for the cost of one box of ammunition?
I agree with you.
Why?
I agree with you. And
You
that,
know?
like I
And
said,
Roy, I'm not. I get you're driving around on the tractor.
Yeah.
I mean, that makes sense to me.
I would not use hand-loaded ammunition in my standard, carry gun, and for a couple of reasons. Is number one, there's 2 or 3 fire or ammunition makers who I really trust. I've literally fired tens of thousands of rounds of their product and have never had one misfire or go bad. There are some other manufacturers where I fired tens of thousands of their rounds and pretty much regularly had duds or misfires, and so I've had people say I reload in a sterilized environment and I use the most careful components that I can, and it's a bit like Black Hills. They actually literally inspect every primer that goes into them. Nobody does that, I mean, they literally, I've seen it, and this guy looks at every single primer and they hand inspect every single cartridge. And so arguably, if you're a talented hand loader, then your reloads would be as effective as somebody who's as careful as that. But it's what Brent said. It's the L word, and it's the status quo in a courtroom case that if you use your own hand load, it throws a wrench into the predictability of the outcome of the case, and it lets people think either you're a bloodthirsty warmonger because you're trying to put so much powder in the case that you're going to blow this guy up, or you're not responsible, right? You're risking and so that's why I'm with you guys on that. Factory ammunition only for defensive ammunition. But if you're out hunting with a reload in your 30-06 and you get attacked by a group of thugs, don't not defend yourself because you're worried about that you have hand-loaded ammunition in your rifle. And I think that's not talked about. So.
Well, there's things you don't really think about, in the courtroom process. I mean, what happens when the Ballistics Lab needs to reproduce something, to prove a point either in your favor or against your case? And what are they going to do? If it's a reload, what happens then?
Right.
Yeah.
If it's factory ammo, you go source, the same brand and the same lot, and you do what you have to do.
Yeah.
But,
That's a good point, Tom. That's a really good point. Yeah.
Sitting here, I don't want to have a flexible opinion, but I'm kind of seeing the light on both sides of this. If you're not part of some kind of organization or agency where you are directed to use brand X type of whatever, if you're just John Q. Citizen or Susie Q. Citizen, I think it's okay if you understand that if I have to shoot somebody, these questions are going to be raised. And I really like what Tom was saying about, no, I was trying to use the minimum force that I could come up with. If you keep that in the back of your mind and you are ready, you and your attorney are ready for it when it comes to trial, which it will, I can see where, again, as a private citizen, that might be okay. But having said all that, I'm a private citizen now. I use factory ammo.
Yeah.
Well, I think
you're not going to have a jury full of gun geeks in the box. You will not.
You
there
wish.
will not. We will not be in the jury box
unless you live in Missouri.
So,
Yeah.
I will say though, because I've seen this, is that it either becomes an issue or not an issue. It really depends on the judge more than anything. I mean, if the judge is a shooter, he may just say, "Nope, sorry, we're not going to go there. It's irrelevant."
Yeah.
Next. But if it's inner city Chicago and you shoot somebody with your self-defense 10mm hand load that you made, that's probably going to be headlines.
Yep.
Guy shoots gang member and he uses explosive, ammunition that he loaded, and so.
And I think it is important for people to understand this, folks. Most folks don't spend any time in the courtroom like we have. there are attorneys out there, both prosecutor or plaintiff's attorney, that will say things like, well, Mr. Huntington, you just wanted to kill people, didn't you?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And they will use stuff like that. Oh, you used a hollow point, which is outlawed by the Geneva Convention because you wanted to see blood spurting everywhere. They're playing to the jury, but trying to make you look really, really bad. So I wouldn't change my tactical loadout based on something that might happen. But I think it's important that you're aware that this is one of the things that could be used against you if you have to defend yourself.
Well, you know, I had a case that I represented the defendant, and he used a 45 ACP caliber gun, and he used just standard factory full metal jacketed ammunition. We shot somebody 7 times. It was a lawful defensive shooting, and we got him off, right? Except 6 of the 7 rounds penetrated through and through. And the prosecutor tried to make a case of how unsafe this was, and he was using military-style ammunition, you know, to shoot this guy, and it was endangering. Why didn't he use a safer hollow point? But then in another courtroom where somebody used hollow point ammunition, they were taken to task because he was using extra deadly dum-dum ammunition, you know?
Yeah.
And
Extra
they were
deadly.
able to, yeah, and they were able to defend him by saying, well, no, these are proven, the police use them so they don't over-penetrate, and you know, and
Yeah.
so you really are, it's a crapshoot, and at least if you're gonna stack your decks, then you do what Tom says, which is factory ammunition from a reputable maker, not Joe the ammo maker at the corner,
Yeah.
right? You know, a name
No
brand.
scary names.
Yeah,
right?
no, yeah, exactly. No zinc explosive.
Death
you
Slayer
know.
3000.
Yeah. And that's what you carry in your practice with hand loads all you want. There's nothing wrong with that. You know.
The
So, you guys
Deathfire
agree?
3000. I like
The
that.
Deathfire.
Deathfire? Okay, so
All right.
to wrap things up,
Wrap things up.
you go out and you buy Deathfire Slayer bullets and you reload them at home.
Yeah.
With
Is that what
black
I heard?
powder. With black powder.
With black powder.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, just kidding. We're just
And
kidding.
fulminate
Okay.
of mercury in the hollow point, so it literally explodes,
little end.
and shards of teeth and
All right.
brain.
All right. You're cut off now, and we're ending this segment. Bye.